So our first step is to get your template. You can go ahead. There are some instructions with the supplies and optional supplies that we just went over. But what you're going to notice on this first page is your little template. So with your paper scissors, you're going to want to save this template if you think you're going to need to know the layers of your pattern or of this template. So I like to save it because I put it in my sewing journal too. So save this off to the side, save your instructions, and then we're going to go through and we are going to cut out our template pieces on this third page here with our paper scissors. We have all of our little pieces, and if you haven't decided on what colors you want, now would be a great time. I have a stack of the felt that I can choose from, but I'm going to keep it simple. This monster kind of reminds me of like a fire, piece of fire, so I'm going to stick with a red for his body. I'm also going to make his eyelids the same color as his body. For this, so I have to find parts G and H, and I'll put them over on the red. So those are going to be my red pieces. I also am going to do white for the big circles of his eyes and for the teeth. So I have the teeth right here, and the eyes are going to be going on there. And of course, my other color is going to be black for his mouth and for the little circles of the eyes. So I'm going to match those up there. So next what we're going to do is you're going to find a color that's going to stick out. So when we're tracing these, you could pin them down if you think you can pin and cut around them. But I think that tracing it is a little bit easier because there's smaller pieces for this. So for each of these little pieces, I'm going to be using a pen, and I'm just going to trace so that I have a guide for when I'm using my fabric scissors to cut it out. I'm using red so I can see it well. So we have the teeth and the big circles of the eyes. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this same process for each of our pattern pieces. And then once I have them done, I'm going to take my fabric scissors and cut out around my lines. Now we have all of the pieces of our monster cut out. So you can go ahead and look at the template if you need it for a guide. And I have all my pieces here. So the first thing I want to do is lay the white eyes down. Where'd my other big eye go? So I can see which way they're going to be a little bit googly, like that. And just for placement, I'm going to go ahead and stick the black parts on there. My eyelids, now the way that you put the eyelids will change the look of your monster altogether. So if you angle them, wrong one. If you angle them inward, you're going to get an angry monster. If you do them straight, it'll look more like a sleepy, concerned monster. So depending on what you want your monster to look, play around with the eyelids. Let's see, I got to move these up to make room for this big mouth. So the mouth is there. So I have things kind of laid out, but I'm going to go ahead and get my liquid stitch out and start putting them in their place. Like I said, I just take the top off so that it doesn't come shooting out at me for these littler projects. So I'm going to get some on the end of my toothpick. And for the mouth, this is the perfect place for it. I'm just going to do the edges. You do not want to get in the middle because we're going to be cutting a hole in the middle. And if we get glue on that, it'll make it too stiff to make the hole. If you get a little bit starts coming out, no worries. This brand that I have here, it does dry clear, so you wouldn't even notice it. Just want to get a little under this edge here too, to hold all the sides down. There we go. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and put my white eyeballs because I like the placement of this, so I'm going to leave them right there where they're at. So starting with the layers, we'll put those down first. And I just kind of roll that glue on so that it's evenly throughout the back of the eye. And I'll do the same on this side, give it a roll. Find my little black dots, and I'm going to put those right about in the middle, rolling it. Got a little more glue on there for this one. We're going to wait. It doesn't take too long for this glue to dry, but I'm going to give it a second so that when we're cutting it and working with it, things don't start popping off. So our monster's starting to come together. The eyelids, I forget which one went where. This was the smaller one. So I'm going to make him angry. I did a cute one earlier. I'll do this one a little bit angry. And I'll go ahead and slant them inward. The only thing we're missing now are his teeth. So I know the big ones are going to go along the bottom like that, and the smaller ones will go flip. Let me see what that looks like flipped. Again, you can play around with it, put your pieces. Yep, I had it right. If you want to make any adjustments to change it so that each one is different, that's super fun too. So I'm just going to roll it, especially along the edges, because I don't want those little points to come up and start curling out. So there's the bottom. So that part is complete. I'm going to wait, I don't know, like 10 minutes, and I will check on it to see if my glue is dry enough to start creating the fun treat. And these eyes are being tricky. But if this is a project that you're doing with kids too, like I said, you can definitely use some sewing skills to do accent pieces if you want to do the eyes. But because it's just a Halloween fun little treat that I'm doing, I'm just using a fun liquid stitch. Now that our glue has dried, this is the fun part of the monsters, is where it really starts to come together. So we're going to put these little slits in its mouth. I don't know if you can see very good in the camera, but depending on what you're going to be using it for, if you're going to be putting your pieces right through, you know, this is an option with a crayon as a sample. If you're going to be putting it right through the mouth, you'll need, you know, whatever size of what you're putting through so that it'll fit. So it's really just trial and error for this part. So I'm going to actually be doing the balloon for this one. So I'm just going to poke a hole with my sharp seam ripper and just glide it carefully so that it doesn't, you don't want it too big. So I'm doing about the same size as I had on my other monster. And I'm going to go a little bit over, and I'm doing it on a diagonal just because I liked the way that sits better. And you can't see them, but I do have these slits right here. And you saw how easy that seam ripper allowed me to do that. If you don't have a seam ripper, an alternative option would be to find a little pair of scissors such as this. It has a really pointy edge, a sharp edge on it, so that you could poke through the layers of the felt or foam, whatever you're using for your monsters easily. And also, just to note, it was easier because there was no glue behind it, so it was just poking it through the fabric and not through the hardened glue. So now we're going to move on to the next part, and that's filling our balloons. Of course, for your balloons, you can use anything you want to stuff in there. I did two ideas, you know, for a sweet treat. If we're doing a sweet trick and treat, I'm going to be using the Smarties. Again, this is something that you could put right through the mouth like we did the crayon. Or it might be easier with two people, but you can most certainly do it on your own as well. Open up the balloon and kind of work your candy. Just slide it right in. However many pieces you want to put in. We'll do 2 for this video. I can get them without an assistant. Like I said, it is easier if you have somebody doing this with you, but we got it in there. So I have 2 pieces in there, like that, and we just blow it up to the size that you want. So just make it look like, I'm going to let a little air out there so you can still see the candies in there. I'm going to go ahead and tie that so it stays shut. Now all you're going to do with the candy is put it through your 2 holes. You can weave it in and out. Or, you know, an option too is, because you do have this knot, if you just did one little slit and you're doing the balloon, that works too. 2 just secures it because I could tie it better. So I have my little candy monster and I just pulled it through. You can see that the knot is holding it in place back there. So I am going to set him. The balloon actually helps him stand up, so let's put him over to the side for a second while we do our candy one. Grab another balloon. I'm sorry, our markers. So I'm not going to put all 3 of these little markers in there. You can, but for this video I'm not. I'm going to choose yellow just because it matches my balloon. And same as the candy, just kind of open it up and pop it in there. This is our non-sweet treat. Alright. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I did do this little coloring page. I am going to roll this up. Well, actually, I'm going to roll it the other way because I do want the picture to be facing out. So let's roll it that way. And I'm really going to open this up as much as I can. And we're just going to play around with it until we get our little book inside of the balloon like so. And again, we're going to blow this up. Like so. So we have our coloring in there. Let a little bit more air out because I don't want it to be too big. Give it a tie. And same as the other, we are going to let our monster eat it, pulling the knot through our hole. And again, if you need it more secure, you have those 2 holes, or you can do the one just like that. So there we have our little sweet treat and our non-sweet treat monsters.